leaked every piece of evidence that they have?
Sorry?
Has the prosecution leaked all of the evidence that they had?
No, they haven't. So what they've leaked, no, they haven't. So what they've leaked is this. So what we know about, and then I'll explain to you what they've leaked. So what we have is the witness statement of the women, right? We have the psych report. Do you think the psych report's acceptable?
I do, yeah.
You do. Why do you think it's acceptable?
It was done by a professional. What else can I go by?
So you think it's acceptable that a psych report was done on the US Moldovan woman, and then based on that psych report, the psychologist made a judgment that all the other women are brainwashed. So Jasmine and Beatrice, she never saw them. She never met them. She never did a psychiatric report on them. And just based on them girls' words, she decided that they were brainwashed. Do you think that's how? Do you think that's acceptable?
I don't know the extent to which you can guess the other one. Why have we moved on to the psych report? Why did we jump from
No, because you asked for the evidence. That was the second evidence.
Well, no, I was asking. You seem to be very confidently stating that the presence of the bottom bitch, that hasn't been mentioned by any other woman or any other person.
That's right.
But how do we know the prosecution isn't planning on bringing that up at trial?
Well, we only base on things on what information we have right now. The information we have right now is we know there's a witness statement, we know there's a psych report, we have the two rulings that were leaked, and we also have what else? We have some of the WhatsApps that were leaked. I can't use. You're telling me I can't use any statement that Andrew Tate has made in any of his videos or websites. That's not fair game for me to use. Look, you have to accept. Look, there could be a snap. I can take. Look, I was even going to do a low below, and I actually took a snippet from your video where you said me and Lena are racist. But guess what? That was out of context. That was a joke you were making because you were being humorous, and there was context because you were having a joke with like somebody who was accusing you.
Sure,
of it.
But what is
my point? The point I'm trying to make is that would be unacceptable for me to use to then say you're racist. So in reality, what'll happen is this is what I think. This is in the scenario where I think it should be used and when it shouldn't be used. So the scenario where a video evidence should be used is, let's say, for example, someone says I killed Michael, and then you see Michael dead. You'd be like, okay, he said I've killed Michael online and Michael's dead. But if he says I've killed Michael, but then like Tony's dead, that doesn't mean that just because he said he's going to murder someone that he's murdered Tony. So the issue is this: whenever you're going to use something online, the specific usage has to be used. So when you're giving the example of the bottom bitch, there needs to be evidence that actually happened, and there's no evidence that happened based on
that
all
we've been presented with.
Yeah, that we've been presented with. But we've been presented with significant. So I've done a significant amount of research on the Moldovan woman. There's nothing about a bottom bitch. I've done a significant amount of research on the US woman. There's nothing about a bottom bitch. Jasmine and Beatrice, the same thing. This UK, this woman number 7, the BBC did. She literally says she actually explains how she went abroad, and it was based on her own decision, her interaction with Andrew Tate. So we've got 5 women. So yeah. There is a small possibility that the other 2 women could say that happened. But right now, based on these 5 women, no.
Okay, so when you compare the joke about me making a small racist comment saying,
you didn't make a racist comment. No, you
saying
didn't.
That, let's say even if I did, right? The way that you would evaluate the truthfulness of it is you go, well, let's look at his entire body of work.
I accept.
Right? You would say what we do.
Exactly.
So if somebody's making comments about Andrew Tate, then we would look at his entire body of work.
So
if we look at what Andrew Tate's business is, or at least what he's claimed it is he's working with over 70 women, and he claims most of them are his girlfriends, are loyal to him. A lot of them are Eastern European. He has talked about defrauding them on their taxes. He's talked about using a bottom bitch to rope some of them into his business. He's talked about how his brother has talked about how he doesn't let any of them read any of their Instagram messages. He's talked about how he doesn't let any of them leave. There's been statements leaked by some of the victims saying that they weren't allowed to leave the premises without a bodyguard or without one of the 2 women going along with them. That when we look at all of this, I don't think it's fair to say that we're just taking a single clip or we're just taking one comment and we're trying to make the claim like, oh, Andrew Tate is this horrible person. His entire model of camming, from his brother talking about how they would just scam men. Here you go.
I gave you 2.
Oh, that's kind of.
I gave you 2.
Yeah,
There's a pen right next to Dustin.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah, we're accommodating here.
Yeah, accommodating. Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate's entire lives have been them openly talking about how they are scammers and about how they basically acquire women to use for their businesses in ways that to any sane person is going to sound like sex trafficking, where you're getting women that are loyal and faithful to you, that you're going to get to do camming, and in multiple statements they've said like, oh, and you know what, they're my property and I get all of the money, and then in other statements, Andrew has detailed how he defrauds them on their taxes. I don't see how any sane person does look at this and go like, oh, you know, this kind of looks like sex trafficking. It really does fit the bill completely.
So, basically 2 points. The fallacy of your position is this, and I'll get to the fallacy in a second. First things first, I agree with you. You should take a person's full body of information. And when you take Andrew Tate's full body, you've seen it online. There's so many of his fans have produced videos demonstrating the complete opposite. No, you shouldn't fraud the women. No, you should look after them. You should take care of them. You should respect them, so on and so forth. So you do have content that is equally on the same level as the content that you use to attack Tate. And that's my point. When you use the whole body, there is a huge level of body of information out there that shows both the positivity of what he's doing and the negativity of these statements. That's the first point. In terms of the second point, again, this is the problem you're doing, because I know you have to do it because you know the case doesn't line up with your point. What you're basically doing is separating online content of what he's saying and saying, I don't care about what's happening in the case, that he should be convicted based on that. But guess what? I'm saying what he's saying online has no correlation with what he's done. So therefore, you can't use that as evidence to then say he should be convicted. What you should be doing, or what you can do, and I would find that acceptable, is if he's actually got a specific statement. So let's say the US woman says, look, he did X to me, specifically X, not the whole thing and trying to make it look like human trafficking. And then you went and found he did X in the video, then you could be like, he did it, but that's not what's happening. You're basically saying, he did this on the video, I do not care what the evidence states, I'm going to just say that he's guilty. So what you're basically saying is, guess what, I'm going to trial him, or I'm going to convict him based solely on social media content, irrespective of what the real life content is. And that's a problematic, because like I said, you're not understanding the point of, and I tried to explain to you from a thinking point of view, and you thought it was a race issue, but you're not understanding the issue of this. People talk in humor. People don't always talk in literalism. People exaggerate. People try and make their business look a lot better than they did. There's a number of reasons for that, but that's basically what happens. So in reality, when you're saying this, we need to look at it from a contextual point of view. So that's the first point. So now what you need to do is give me, if you want something as evidence, give me something in the documents, something that they've done that you say, yeah, they should be convicted. Because guess what? Right now, the judge doesn't agree with you, because the judge said, there's reasonable suspicion, but there's not enough evidence to prosecute and convict. So that's why the prosecutor, for the last 9 months, as well as these 2 months, is looking for the evidence. Because if he had the evidence to convict them or prosecute them, even before that, he would have used it. But he knows that this social media content that you're talking about, that doesn't match up with what the real life evidence and claims of the women are. So what you are saying is, guess what? I don't care what the judge says. It doesn't matter that the judge says that there's not enough evidence to prosecute and convict. That's not good enough for me. I'm going to look at social media content, and he's guilty.
Okay, so I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning of the show. Only one of us here seems interested in having the process follow itself completely, and that's me. I said that whatever they find, I think that if they find enough to bring charges, then they should have a trial. And if they do well on their trial, the prosecution, then he should get convicted. That's how it should work. It might be the case that after the prosecution digs further, that they don't find enough, and Andrew Tate and Tristan and the other 2 women end up walking. That could be the case. And if that is the case, then that's fine. I'm not here saying that he should be convicted. You keep saying that he should be convicted. I don't believe that he should be convicted based on what he said in his social media posts.
Thanks,
I think that okay, cool, but yeah. I think that it's okay.
So what do we disagree on?
Hold on.
What do we disagree on?
Hold on. Well, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
The first thing you said is look at his full body of work. Okay. Yeah. His full body of work is that he treats women like property. When he has some TikTok videos that say things like you should look after women and respect them and take care of them, he's taking care of them as a pimp takes care of his prostitutes, and he's reiterated that multiple times, that the women belong to him, that they're not allowed to go out without him, they can't go to the club without him, they can't do these things without him, that they stay home all the time and they cook and they clean and hold on, let me respond to his things, please, and then you can say whatever you want, okay? Yeah. That he's multiple times stated this, and his brother Tristan has stated the same thing as well, that they're not allowed to look at their Instagram DMs, that he controls all of their social media accounts. He probably control their income as well, I would imagine that would extend to that. So when you say that there's a counterbalance, well, on one end, he's treating women like property, but on the other end, he's saying that respect them because you need to own them as sex workers, essentially, or own them as house slaves. I don't think that that's a good counterbalance. You bring up this point again and again that he should be convicted based on social media things. I have not said that he should be convicted. What I'm saying is that, and what you agreed to, is that the prosecution hasn't given us every single piece of evidence. If Andrew Tate has said, I defraud people on their taxes, I don't think that he should be convicted for it. I think that would be a good point for the prosecution to say, okay, well, let's start subpoenaing records and let's see what have these girls actually been paid. They should have bank accounts. There should be income statements from his camming websites, and then the prosecution can look and they could go, this woman earned, 50,000 Romanian dollars, and she was paid paid, 25,000 Romanian dollars. Well, everything here is probably good, and they move on. But maybe she earned $50,000, and for some reason she's only getting paid 500 Romanian dollars. Then that would be probably something you would bring in court and say, hey, look, this is part of the charges we're bringing against you. You are clearly defrauding these women. I don't know what the extent of that investigation is going to be, because right now I don't have any insight into what the prosecution has besides what they've leaked to the public or presented to the judge to maintain that the Tates remain in prison until they finish their investigation. The people talking humor and all of this, again, I'm going by full-length videos that I've watched of Andrew and Tristan Tate explaining how they work with women and explaining their business. I'm not going by little quips. I'm not going by small clips. I'm not going by jokes. I'm just listening to how they describe the process of what they do. And if you listen to it, it sounds indistinguishable from pimping.
Would you agree that the CCTV footage should be included in the case?
I don't know what the particular. I don't think
it's weird. Like, why wouldn't they have that in there?
Why I don't know what evidence they need to have on both sides, because they don't need every single piece of evidence.
Well,
right?
I'm just thinking, like, if you're gonna go off of, because you guys know a lot more about this than I do, but basically, like, that Andrew and Tristan were like running this operation, wouldn't CCTV footage be the perfect thing to see? Like
the problem is, I don't know if the CCTV footage is dispositive, right? It might be the case that there are videos of them partying inside, but it might be the case that leaving the compound is actually incredibly difficult. That you're not, that once you step outside, you get in trouble. Also, according to Romanian criminal law, statements from victims can't get rid of sex trafficking. Like, a victim can't consent to that. So even if a victim says, oh, well, this was all fine and it was okay, if text message logs are released where he's saying like, oh, I want to marry you, blah, blah, blah. And then she comes down and she starts working for him and she's not even getting paid her fair cut. It doesn't matter if she comes out on social media and says, oh, no, like, we're cool, everything's fine, especially if they're still working in the industry. Those statements explicitly called out in Romanian law are not used to clear the charges of sex trafficking.
As many of you know, I was just banned on TikTok, and we are demonetized on a daily basis on this platform. If you want to help, please consider sending a super thanks below. Every donation helps, and it helps make what we do possible.